Hello, my name is Mike Addison. If I tell people I'm a hope dealer, I go around giving people hope. So I've spent my life trying to tell people that, hey, look, that you couldn't get much further from the bottom than I was. But I've been able to cross that bridge, and I'm doing everything I can to give others hope that they can cross that bridge as well.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Hollercast, the show produced by the Holler Creative in Corbin, Kentucky, whose mission is to bring hope and opportunity to the Appalachian region. I'm your host, James Schweitzer, and today we have Mike Addison joining us in the studio. Mike actually has a few different jobs, and we'll get into what those are a little bit later, but he's super involved in the community and super passionate about this area, and the conversation kind of jumps around a lot because he does so many cool things, and I thought all of them were pretty interesting, and they all play into this idea of bringing hope and opportunity to Appalachia in a little bit of a different way. So get ready and listen up, because he had a ton of awesome things to say, and we'll get right into the interview now. Today in the studio we have a very special guest. Mr. Mike Addison is with us. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for allowing me to be on here today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for taking the time to be here. So we've asked everyone the same icebreaker question, and that question is, what is your go-to gas station snack and drink?
Okay, it's peanut M&Ms and bottled water. I usually only drink bottled water. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll veer off course and drink a flavored bottled water of some kind. But peanut M&Ms are a staple. Yeah. It's
nice to have someone in the middle ground saying candy still. Because we've had a lot of them that are just like blends of the spectrum. It's like a Slim Jim and a Mountain Dew.
Oh, yeah.
And then some are just like, oh, just some almonds and water for me.
Yeah.
So it's good that you have
anybody who says almonds and water, don't trust them. No matter what. Don't trust them.
It's not like the gas station thing, you know? You're there for...
Well, there's a reason they put the peanut M&Ms right where you check out, right? It's what everybody on Earth wants to eat. So it's a good, 50 million Elvis fans can't be wrong. So
true that. Impulse buys. So you are the lead pastor at New Hope Ministries, Church of God.
Correct.
The vice president at the Appalachian Children's Homes, and an adjunct professor at University of Cumberlands. Those are just the things I could find on the internet really fast. What else do you do?
Well, of course, I'm going to do a shameless plug here and talk about our Catfish and Common Sense leadership podcast that we do each week. I do that with my brother, Dr. Scott Addison. He's a principal and educator in Virginia, and with the president of our children's home, Steve Yeary. And so we love doing that. I also run our local chapter of Buy a Tree, Change a Life. That's where we sell live or real Christmas trees during the holiday season, and 100% of our proceeds goes to stem the tide of human trafficking, both globally and locally.
Awesome.
And then my newest passion is I'm a board member on the Corbin baseball boosters, my job there is to raise awareness about the Corbin High School baseball program and to raise money. So I've been married for this year will be 22 years. And then I have two teenagers living at home, so pray for me. And but April, my wife, love of my life, and my kids. So we, really busy. I have what's called ADHD, which is attention deficit disorder in high definition. So I can't sit still. I get real bored. I get bored really easy, and so I got to have something going on, or I get fidgety and can't handle it.
So I was listening to, I think, a fairly recent episode of your podcast. I don't know how recent it was for you, like when you recorded it. But you started to mention part of your story.
Sure.
Our angle for things, is hope and opportunity to Appalachia. And you started to mention your story and talked about a little bit how you grew up in poverty. And I think there's a lot of hope to be found within that story. So do you mind sharing that?
Sure. So my brother and I were certainly raised in poverty. Another thing that I do is I do a lot of corporate speaking now. Companies bring me in to kind of tell my story. And I talk a lot about the poverty cycle, which is, of course, social economic status that you're born into. We were born into poverty, lack of opportunity. In the time that I was coming through the southwestern part of Virginia, the coal industry had dried up and was drying up. So my father was out of work, and My mother had to return back to a local community college to try to get some type of certification to make ends meet. And then, of course, lack of education. My brother was the first person in our family to graduate college. I was the second. So, it was we were caught up in that poverty cycle. And then from there, we just kind of you learn those survival skills. Our cheese came in a rectangular cardboard box. Our peanut butter came in a can. But we were raised in a church environment where we had a strong faith in God. But my story takes a turn when I was a teenager. My dad, who was out of work and disabled in the mining industry, got addicted to prescription drugs and painkillers. Ultimately, he ended up murdering my mother on the main street of my hometown in Norton, Virginia. Left me an orphan and ward of the state. And so I've been on my own since I've been 16. My dad's serving a life sentence in prison. And then if poverty could be worse, that's when I found it at that point, because I was living in a foreclosed house. I was, just struggling to survive. I wasn't going to go into a children's home like I help lead now. I wasn't going to go into some kind of state care. Somewhere the court thought it would be a good idea to give my 18-year-old brother custody of me, and that was a bad idea altogether. And so drug and alcohol addiction I developed during that time. I became an atheist at that time. I said, look, if there's no way that a good God would let this happen, because my mother was such a good lady. So through all of that struggle, I found the solace in my faith. The Lord Jesus visited me and changed my life. So at age 18, and then from 18 to 40, I've spent my life, I tell people I'm a hope dealer. I go around giving people hope. And so I've spent my life trying to tell people that, hey, look, that you couldn't get much further from the bottom than I was. But I've been able to cross that bridge, and I'm doing everything I can to give others hope that they can cross that bridge as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy, I guess, for someone else that hasn't lived that situation, that hard situation, to try to encourage and inspire them to work themselves out of it. But if they haven't been there, they can't relate.
And of course, at our children's home in Barbourville, we have 48 court-ordered kids on our campus today, and all of them come from the poverty cycle, broken homes, and a lot of trauma that's either happened to them or that they have committed themselves. And a lot of times when I get to meet them, and I try to talk to them about how to better themselves, and we talk a lot about the success sequence on our campus. There was a PhD research done from 1960 to 2018 that if there's three things, if you do them in this order, there's only a 1% chance you'll ever be in poverty. Number one is you have to graduate high school. Number two, you have to find meaningful work. And then number three, you wait till you're married to have children. And that's not a religious statement. That is a statement of PhD research across rural, urban, all the ethnicities. It was an incredible study that was done. So we teach our kids about the success sequence. And when they look at me, they see me now, and they think, hey, that's easy for you to say, look at you. And but then when I get to tell them my story, a lot of them become sympathetic to me. They go, "Wow, really? Man, you really had it bad." So I think my story, as bad as it is, it now is I get to use it as a opportunity to give hope to others. And they hopefully it can be or I can be an inspiration to someone else that, hey, I made it out, and you can make it out. There's this speech that I give sometimes to the companies I talk to. It's called the Impassable Bridge. There's really Yoda smart people out there who said that they did the study that if you're born into poverty, statistically you'll always be in poverty. But if you're born into wealth, statistically you'll always be in wealth. And very few people cross that bridge. It's called the Impassable Bridge. Well, I'm one of those very, very blessed people who's been able to cross that bridge. Not rich by any means, but certainly not in poverty. So what we don't get to do is sit on this side of the bridge and say, hey guys, look at my house and my car and my nice family and my Disney vacation, and hey guys, it's really better over on this side. It's great. That's not what God's called us to do.
Right.
If we do make it across, He's called us to put our hard hat on, go back and get someone else and pull them across too.
Yeah. Dang, that's good stuff. Going back to the three things are, you have to graduate from high school, find meaningful work, don't have children until
you're married. Correct.
The first and last one are kind of like more concrete. They're easier to understand.
Correct.
So how would you define meaningful work? Or how do they define it?
Sure. I think that's a great question. We have spent a generation sending kids to college, and they've racked up thousands and thousands of dollars of student loan debt. It's a hot button political issue right now. But the reality of it is there has to be a cost-benefit analysis done to that.
Yeah.
Why would you, one thing I tell people is, why would you want to rack up $50,000 or $60,000 worth of student loan debt to go into an entry-level position making $30,000 a year? Like, it doesn't make sense. You're going to struggle just because your payment back, the cost-benefit's not there. Now, have your shower leak on Saturday night and call a plumber. It's $150 an hour. Yeah. Like, that guy's killing it, right?
Right.
So you can go get a certification for a fraction of that, work as an apprentice, and make $80,000 a year with no student loan debt. Yeah. So it's the work has to be meaningful. So, you could look at me. I've got an MBA. I've got an undergrad degree, and I'm very thankful for my degrees. I don't have any student loan debt. I was blessed in that regard. And a lot of things I get to do now is because of my education. But I'm not going to be the guy sitting here and look. And I'm an adjunct professor, right? I sit on the alumni board at University of the Cumberlands. Like, I'm an advocate of education, but I'm not going to be the guy sitting here saying you have to go to college to be successful. Right. Meaningful work is finding that place where I forgot who said it. Somebody, the guy's name is slipping me. But if you find what you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. Yeah. Like, I don't feel like I'm working, right? This is what I was put on earth to do. Now, when I was 19 years old and first married, I went and worked in a sawmill loading logs on a log chain, right? Yeah. So now that was working, right? And I hated every minute of that. But even though I was in that sawmill was never in me. I knew that was not my greatest purpose, and that wasn't anything against any about those guys working at the sawmill. It was just, I knew that there was a place and a purpose for me, and I had to search that out. So meaningful work is when you feel like you're not only making $1, but you're making a difference.
It's cool to have a pastor on here because you know how to like make points and make them sound good too.
Thank you.
So from all the different hats you wear and the things you do, are there things in any that you could specifically recognize that you learn in this one role that you can carry to the other roles or that transfer back and forth?
Sure. Of course, the calling on my life to pastor it is something that was there once I become a fully devoted follower of Jesus when I was 18. It wasn't long after that the call of God was on my life to pastor. And I have found that being the hands, feet, and mouth of Jesus here in this earth, it goes in any context that I've been in. So if I'm at the children's home, I'm looking at children who are desperately in need of hope, and so they're just being a good guy. I have one of my associates on my staff at the church. In one of his sermons, he just said, "Let me make it real easy for you. Just don't be a dirtbag," right? So and then that always stuck with me. And his name is Jacob Moore. He's one of those brilliant guys that's on my staff, and it always stuck with me that, hey, being good to people, good is always good, right? And the Bible says that everywhere Jesus went, he was doing good. So if I'm at church, if I'll just do good and do the right thing and treat people good, if I'm at ACH, if I treat people good, my students that I teach, if I treat people good, on the boards I serve on, and if I just do good, there is no context, at least that I'm involved in, where doing good is just not the right thing to do. So it just transcends everything that I do.
Yeah. It's cool that it's so hard to do, but it's like that really is that simple. Just be good to people.
Yeah, and the New Testament, the New Testament tells us that, right? Yeah. Paul said that the things that I should be doing, I don't do, and the things that I don't do, those are the things I should be doing, and because we wrestle against this nature that we were born into, so it's easier to not do the right things. It lends to our nature, but with a little bit of grit and determination and purpose, doing good is always the right thing.
That's good. So we talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and people working on their small businesses, and as a business grows and scales, you naturally would find yourself in a leadership role because you have to hire people, and then, oh wow, you're in charge of them now. You're responsible for these people. Right. Do you have any leadership advice that you would give to entrepreneurs?
Sure. So on my staff at church, I have 10 people on my staff there. At my staff at ACH, I have 87 that work with me there and that I'm responsible for. So I lead a lot of people every week. So what I have found is that again, giving people an opportunity to find their value in the organization. And then my job is to be that catalyst that comes alongside them, right? Yeah. If you look at the org chart in most companies, you've got this great guy at the top of the pyramid, and he sucks up all the oxygen. He or she is the main person, and then everybody else kind of flows down the chart. Yeah. For me, I've always tried to invert that, and instead of everyone pushing me up, I'm trying to be the guy that pushes everyone else up, right? Yeah. And as a leader, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I find or how can I create scaffolding in my organizations that are going to allow people to find their value and their purpose and excel in their gifts. I hire for the places that I'm weak, and I have a lot of weaknesses, right? I'm a strong type A personality. Sometimes I'm moody and want things my way. And, I'm not the person, like if you want to sit down and have this long, deep, meaningful, drawn out conversation where I have to sit there and listen, like I'm probably not your guy. Yeah. I'm the, okay, how do we fix this? What's the bottom line? I'm not the lovey, cuddly, like teddy bear guy. Yeah. So I know I can be abrasive. So I have to surround myself with people who are strong where I'm weak. I'm not a detail person. I'm a big picture thinker. I only see the goal line. I only care about winning. So, but I need detailed people in my life to kind of say, okay, this needs to be done. This needs to be done. This needs to be done. So, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, you got to find the areas where you're weak, and then add people. Andrew Carnegie called it his mastermind alliance. You got to add people to the areas where you're weak, and if your ego won't allow you to admit your weakness, then you're going to struggle in leadership.
Yeah, you got to be honest with yourself.
Correct.
Hey guys, just wanted to take a second to let you know that this episode of the Hollercast is sponsored by Holler Hustle. Holler Hustle is a marketing news source that sends free articles your way to help you improve your business and stay updated on marketing trends. If you'd like to subscribe, it's totally free. Just check out hollerhustle.com. Thanks, guys.
So, we'll talk a little bit about your baseball booster. How did that happen?
Yeah, so, my son's a baseball player, and he plays on the Corbin High School baseball team, and he plays travel baseball. We travel around the country playing on out of an elite travel team out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And when I signed my son up when he was, 6, 7 years old for Corbin Little League, and he just fell in love with the game. He just fell in love with it, and we fell in love with. I've always been a baseball guy. I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, and I'm a baseball guy. And so what I found is as I was just trying to figure out how to help in the program, I found that there was a need. The baseball team has to raise its budget every year, and they have to start from square one.
Yeah.
Raising that budget annually. And so I feel like one of my gift areas is being able to raise awareness and raise money. And so I found something, a niche for me there.
Yeah.
And what I have found out is that the people in Corbin and the businesses in Corbin and the parents and grandparents in Corbin, they want to help these students. They want to help them.
Yeah.
They're looking to be asked, and they're looking to make it real easy for them to contribute.
Yeah.
So myself and the other board members who are incredible, I work with an amazing team, and our head coach Cody Philpott is just, outstanding. Such a winner. So it's real easy in Corbin to get someone who wants to advocate the Red Hounds. I mean, this is our team.
Sure.
This is Red Hound Nation. So, and the overwhelming support that our community has poured out to our kids has been, it's just inspiring, really.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool that in the same way that like you look for weaknesses in yourself, you draw people in to fill those holes where you're weak, but you could look out in the community and say, oh, there's a place where I can help with my skill set, and you just plug yourself right in and made a difference where you are. That's really cool.
Yeah, again, probably not the best board member. I'm not a good board member. I'll be the first to admit that, because I'm usually 1,000 miles an hour with my head on fire, and I figure it's easier to get forgiveness than permission on most things. So I just go, and then eventually someone on the board or the coaching staff looks at me and says, "Hey, Mike, you're going to have to dial this back a little bit. You're just you got to relax, right?" So, and I'm good with it. I don't get offended. I'm the hardest person on earth to offend. I don't get offended. So I'm like, okay, I got you. And I may not agree, and I might spout off, but I'm a soldier.
Yeah, you need someone like that around, because that's what pushes the envelope. They'll always pull you back into where as far as you can go. They're not going to push you.
I do that in everything, though. In church, at my church, at ACH. I'm just that super aggressive go-getter in everything that I do. And I'm an acquired taste. I tell people I'm an acquired taste, and I'm eccentric and different, and
What like good positive habits have you developed in your career of all these things that you do? So what good habits do you have that help you to be successful?
I would be amiss if I didn't say it starts with my relationship with the Lord Jesus. I begin my day in prayer and devotion. I'm an early riser, so I get up early. I sleep about 5 to 6 hours a night. That's all that I need.
Wow.
Again, I'm just fidgety all the time. So early, I can get things done that without phone interruptions or anything like that, so I can get a lot of stuff done. So prayer and devotion. But I think if I had to point to one thing outside of that is my personal growth plan is I try to read a book every month. And I read it on a variety of different topics. I read authors that I don't agree with them politically, or I don't agree with them doctrinally. I try to be a well-rounded person, and I try to learn about things in my personal growth that I don't know about. I've been interested in the automated industrial revolution that they say is emerging, and that's really interested me. And the blockchain management program that we started offering at UC, that's interested me. So I try to find people who challenge me in what I believe. But look, I can't discount how much reading has attributed to my personal growth.
For sure.
So 12 books a year at least that I'm consuming, and I can't talk enough about that.
What What are your top, 3 best books you've ever read?
Top 3 I've ever
we can say
read.
The Bible is one.
So Bible is we know the greatest seller of all time, of course. Well, let me just say recently, because if we did this 2 years ago, it would be different. If we did this 2 years from now, it'll be different. But last year I read a book by Dr. Henry Cloud that's called Necessary Endings. And it's the book was written about the art of ending things and how to end things properly. And what happens is sometimes in church and business, in our own lives, we never end things, but we add things, right? So we find ourselves super stressed and super stretched thin because we keep adding, but we never end. And a lot of times we're afraid to end some things because of how people may react, or we might hurt someone's feelings, or whatever that might be. So that book on the art of ending things. So what I have found, from that, I pulled from that was, I find myself more focused in, I do a handful of things pretty good instead of trying to do 20 things mediocre. So that was a great book that I read. One of our state senators, Dr. Rand Paul, he just wrote a book called A Case Against Socialism. I felt like it was an outstanding read. I know that's a political hot button topic, but I felt like he laid his case out outstanding. But to balance that, I just picked up Andrew Yang's book about the war against normal people. So that's the next one on my queue. Right now I'm reading a book by Neil Gorsuch, our Supreme Court Justice, about it's called a Republic If We Can Keep It. So that's what I'm reading right now. But I'm looking forward to dive into Mr. Yang's book and kind of see, a different perspective.
It's cool you balance it out that way, so you can form your own opinion based on these perspectives of experts.
Well, sure. I don't want to be a robot, right? I want to make sure that I get a full understanding, and even when it comes to the Bible, I read the Bible every day of my life, so I challenge what I believe in the Bible. Even now, even though I've been doing this, I've been in ministry now for 21 years, I still challenge my beliefs, and I don't want to believe them because someone told me that. I want to believe them because it's what the Bible says, and that's the way the Holy Spirit's revealed it to me. So I feel like in a lot of my beliefs I've even evolved, and Andy Stanley calls it challenging the process. We should always be challenging those processes.
I think sometimes people are afraid to change because of how they've stuck with one belief or one viewpoint. But we should be okay with people changing. We should change ourselves because that's how you grow.
Sure, it is. And here in Appalachia, we there's probably some beliefs that was delivered to us, and a lot of them, some of them are not good, right? One of the speeches I talked about was that so there's still parts of Appalachia where people walk around with a low-grade fever of racism at all times, and we got to call awareness to that. We have to say, not only did the Lord create us all perfectly and wonderfully, is what the Bible says. We can't, if we do what Jesus said, which was love God with all your mind, heart, soul, and strength, which is the great commandment. And then he said, love your neighbor as yourself. Then there's no room for racism there, right? And so we have to continue to call those things out politically. Even in the Constitution, all men are created equally. This is just something basic landmarks that our country was founded on. So we don't get to, just because of the region of the United States that we were raised in, maybe some of those cultural norms were passed along, but we have to challenge all of ourselves that, hey, look, we don't get to embrace those just simply because they were passed along. Especially when you become a fully devoted follower of Jesus, there are certain things that we can call out and say, hey, this is not right. And especially when you're speaking to masses of people like I get to, hey, this is not okay, and you don't get to participate in this. And I think it brings a lot of liberty to folks when you're able to bring truth to those areas.
Yeah, definitely. I should ask about some of your entrepreneurial efforts and some of the stuff you're doing, because you're an entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah. So, well, look, I'm always looking for ways. So here's the thing: when it comes to business, when it comes to starting a business, you either have to be the best or you have to be unique, right? Marketing is the price you pay for not being the best, right?
Yeah.
When you're the best, you'll never see a commercial about those who are the best, right? They do it.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you see a Disney commercial.
The products do it for them, right?
Right. Disney is the best, and you don't see it that often. But if you see a ton of commercials and tons of Facebook ads and tons of all this other stuff, it's because you're trying to make up the delta. So you have to be unique, or you have to be the best. So what I would challenge entrepreneurs to do is figure out, hey, how can I be unique in the market? The market's a beast, right? and look, I'm a capitalist like you would not believe, right?
Yeah.
I believe in it. I believe in free market capitalism, and I'm staunch on that. But I'll go ahead and tell you, the market is the beast, and if you're not unique or the best, then the beast will eat you up, and you'll be done. So you gotta get out there and hustle too. Like if you think that customers or income or whatever it might be is gonna set back and just come to you because you got a website and a Facebook page, you're delusional. You gotta. I think Sam Walton said you can be successful by working half days. So the first 12 hours or the last 12 hours, just pick which ones you want to do, and you can be successful.
Yeah, that's good. We've been asking the same closing question to everyone, and the closing question is, what's something new that you've tried recently or are trying, whether it's personally, professionally, educationally maybe. So what's something new you've tried recently, and how is it going?
Something new that I'm trying. Boy, that's a tough one because I'm a pretty staunch creature of habit, and something new that I have tried. I feel like I'm always trying to evolve as a leader. Like I'm always trying to figure out how can I become better at my trade. I guess if I pointed at one thing, in being in ministry for 21 years, I spent the first 19 years of that talking to church people, right?
Yeah.
And over the last couple of years, I've had this incredible opportunity to go into companies and speak on a corporate level and do corporate speaking. And so that's been different for me in that it's not been a church venue, right? So, and I've told all the HR departments, I say, well, look, I love to come. I would be honored to talk to your company, but just know there's a thread of faith in what I'm saying, and that's going to be a part of that. And so far that everyone has been very, very welcome of that. They want to hear my story. That my story is unique, and they want to hear, how could a kid come from abject poverty, orphaned, how can he come from there and do what he's doing now? And people tell me that I'm doing well. I don't necessarily look at it that way. I look at it that, I tell a lot of my staff that you don't quit when you get tired. You quit when the gorilla gets tired, right? Like I feel like I'm hustling today. I had a meeting before this. I got a meeting after this. And so like I have to hustle. But I think the new thing would be going into these corporate situations and speaking on a corporate level. And I've had to hone my presentation. We're a Pentecostal church, so volume of voice and velocity of movement is one of our keystones when it comes to preaching, right? I got to dial that back, and I've got to be very articulate. Where if you're not a reader, I would encourage you to be one, because reading enhances your vocabulary. And if you come across a word when you're reading, you don't know what it is. They told you this in the second grade. You just may have forgotten. When you come across a word and you don't know what it is, Google it, right? What does this mean? And then use it in a sentence. Another thing, I'm a creature of habit, but another thing that I do is on my person at all times. It's in the car right now, but on my person at all time, I have a 3x5 index card at all time. Every day of my life, I make a list. Every day of my life, and what I have to get done that day. And then as I go through my list, I check it off.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, I see how productive I've been.
Yeah.
So. And then
Does it always get finished? Sorry.
No, it doesn't get finished.
Okay.
And then I rip it up at the end of every day.
That's cool.
So I start new every morning, and if something didn't get done that day, it goes into the next day. But I make a list every morning of my life of what I have to get done. It keeps me on task, and I keep that little index card with me. Google says it's worth less than a cent, but to me, it's invaluable. So, but something that challenges me now is speaking in those corporate contexts. I had to become a better public speaker. I've had to learn those new delivery methods to make sure that people's getting what I have to say, and they're hearing me. So that's been a challenge for me, and I've really enjoyed the process.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, then, I won't take any more of your time. You've got more meetings to get to, fighting the gorilla. So thank you, Mike, so much for being here, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Hollercast.
Thank you.